Always drunk or always difficult? That's the question that haunted Teddy Sheringham throughout a career that should have been legendary, but instead became a masterclass in how ego and attitude can overshadow genuine talent. Here was a striker with the ability to score crucial goals at the highest level, yet somehow managed to alienate teammates, anger fans, and waste opportunities that most players could only dream of. Born in 1966, Edward Paul Sheringham began his professional journey at Millwall in 1983, where he would spend 8 formative years establishing himself as a genuine goal-scoring threat. With 93 goals in 220 appearances, he became the club's second highest scorer of all time. The talent was undeniable from the start, but so were the early signs of a personality that would cause problems throughout his career. Even at this early stage, there were glimpses of the flashy character that would later clash so spectacularly with teammates. Sheringham carried himself with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, and his move to Nottingham Forest in 1991 only seemed to inflate his sense of self-importance. He scored the club's first ever Premier League goal, a moment that was also the first goal shown live on Sky Sports. Suddenly, Sheringham wasn't just a good striker, he was a piece of football history. This early taste of the spotlight seemed to go straight to his head. When Tottenham came calling with a £2.1 million offer in 1992, Sheringham made the move with all the swagger of a player who believed his own hype. His debut season seemed to justify that confidence as he finished as the division's top goalscorer with 22 goals. But success at Spurs also revealed the first major cracks in his character. The Andy Cole incident stands as perhaps the most bizarre and telling example of Sheringham's poor judgment and lack of basic professionalism. During Cole's England debut in March 1995 against Uruguay, Sheringham was substituted to make way for the newcomer. As is customary, Cole extended his hand for a simple handshake. Instead of the expected courtesy, Sheringham delivered a public snub that left Cole deeply embarrassed and red-faced in front of the entire stadium. This wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment. Cole later described the incident as so impactful that he didn't want to play the game after that. The humiliation ran so deep that Cole carried the grudge for years, stating he never forgave Sheringham and loathed him personally for 15 years. What kind of professional footballer destroys a colleague's confidence on their international debut over what amounted to petty jealousy? The feud became even more ridiculous when both players ended up at Manchester United in 1997. Despite Sir Alex Ferguson being unaware of their existing animosity, the two strikers were forced to work together. What followed was a truly unique and deeply unprofessional situation, where they formed a prolific partnership on the pitch while refusing to exchange a single word off it for years. Teammate Gary Pallister captured the absurdity perfectly when he observed that they didn't speak to each other, but at least played well together. This extraordinary dynamic reached its lowest point during a match against Bolton in 1998, when their personal animosity boiled over into a physical confrontation that required intervention from Roy Keane. The depth of Cole's dislike was so profound that he once stated he would rather sit down and have a cup of tea with Neil Ruddock, who broke his leg in 2 places, than with Teddy Sheringham. But Cole wasn't the only teammate who found Sheringham insufferable. Roy Keane, Manchester United's captain and a man known for his no-nonsense approach, developed an equally intense dislike for Sheringham's flashy lifestyle and apparent lack of humility. The clash between Keane's working-class mentality and Sheringham's London flashiness created a toxic atmosphere that should have destroyed team chemistry. Keane reportedly despised Sheringham's habit of turning up in his Ferrari and living in a penthouse, seeing these displays of wealth as completely at odds with the team's collective identity. The tension exploded during a heated argument on the team bus in the 1997-98 season. Keane, who was sidelined with a serious knee injury at the time, confronted Sheringham with a cutting remark about going back to London in his red Ferrari and penthouse. Sheringham's response was equally inflammatory, challenging Keane and using a derogatory term that led to a physical grapple between the two players. The most remarkable consequence was Keane's decision to completely ignore Sheringham for the next 3.5 years, maintaining absolute silence even on the pitch and in the dressing room. For a team captain to ostracise a key player so completely speaks volumes about how toxic Sheringham's presence had become. The fact that Manchester United continued to achieve unprecedented success despite these internal conflicts says more about the strength of the squad and Ferguson's management than it does about Sheringham's contribution. The team won the historic treble in 1999, but even in this moment of glory, Sheringham remained isolated from key teammates who simply couldn't stand him. His departure from Tottenham in 1997 revealed another deeply unattractive aspect of his character. Rather than showing loyalty to the club that had given him his biggest break, Sheringham publicly criticised Spurs for their lack of ambition. He made it clear that the decision to leave wasn't a tough call because he didn't think the club were as ambitious as he wanted them to be. He wanted to play with the top players in the world and concluded he would have to leave Spurs to achieve this. This public criticism of his former employers was particularly galling given that he had been hugely popular with the Tottenham faithful. When he returned to White Hart Lane for his first league match as a Manchester United player, he was met with audible jeers and boos from supporters who felt betrayed by his departure and his public accusations about their club's ambition. The Euro 96 dentist's chair incident provided another example of Sheringham's poor judgment and lack of professionalism. During a pre-tournament trip to Hong Kong, Sheringham joined teammates, including Paul Gascoigne, in a public drinking session that quickly spiralled into infamy. The incident involved a drinking game where players were tied to a chair and had spirits poured directly down their throats. When pictures of the incident surfaced in newspapers with headlines like "Disgraceful," it significantly hurt Sheringham's public image. This episode occurred within a broader context of intense media scrutiny faced by English footballers in the 1990s, but Sheringham's participation showed a complete lack of awareness about his responsibilities as an international player. Even his later career longevity, often praised as evidence of his professionalism, can be viewed through a more critical lens. Playing until the age of 42 might seem admirable, but it also raises questions about his inability to recognise when his time was up. His final years at West Ham and Colchester United saw him clinging to relevance in lower leagues, with diminishing returns and statistics that paled compared to his earlier achievements. His return to Tottenham in 2001, after achieving success at Manchester United, seemed more like pragmatism than any genuine emotional connection to the club. The fans who had once adored him had been burned by his public criticism and departure, and his second spell felt hollow compared to his initial impact. Throughout his career, Sheringham showed a remarkable ability to prioritise personal ambition over team harmony and professional relationships. His explicit desire to play with top players and win trophies came at the cost of basic courtesy and respect for teammates and former clubs. The fact that he achieved considerable success despite these character flaws only makes his wasted potential more frustrating. The reconciliation with Andy Cole years after their retirement, occurring unexpectedly in a nightclub, highlighted how unnecessary and destructive their feud had been. Similarly, his eventual handshake with Roy Keane at a charity match showed that these conflicts could have been avoided with basic maturity and professionalism. Sheringham's career statistics tell the story of a genuinely talented player who achieved significant success. He scored 266 goals in 711 career appearances, won multiple Premier League titles, the FA Cup, the UEFA Champions League, and individual accolades, including the PFA Players Player of the Year and FWA Footballer of the Year in 2001. He remains the 13th highest goalscorer in Premier League history. But statistics don't capture the full story of a career marked by unnecessary conflict, damaged relationships, and missed opportunities for genuine greatness. Sheringham had the talent to be remembered as one of England's finest strikers. Instead, he's remembered as much for his feuds and controversies as for his goals and trophies. His legacy is that of a complex and ultimately frustrating figure who possessed exceptional ability but lacked the character to truly maximise his potential. While other players of lesser talent are remembered fondly for their professionalism and team spirit, Sheringham will always be the gifted striker who somehow managed to waste much more more than just chances in front of goal. In the end, he walked a lonely path of his own making, achieving success but never truly earning the respect and admiration that his talent deserved. Peter Shilton is 75, and the truth is, he's hit rock bottom. From a national icon to a man nearly destroyed by his own secret life, this is the painful fall of England's greatest ever goalkeeper. Behind the legendary saves and record-breaking career lay a devastating addiction that would consume everything he'd worked for. Act 1. The Guardian. Behind the mask, for decades, Peter Shilton stood as England's unshakable guardian between the posts. With 125 international caps and over 1,000 competitive matches, he was footballing royalty. 3 World Cups, back-to-back European Cups with Nottingham Forest, and a career spanning 30 years until age 47. He was meticulous, legendary for hanging off banisters to lengthen his arms and analysing every goal he conceded. Yet, whilst millions watched this figure of calm authority, they had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. The steely resolve that made him England's number one was masking a private battle against profound personal demons. The celebrated guardian between the sticks was simultaneously a man crippled by an addiction. It began innocently enough in the 1970s, just a few bob on the horses during his playing days. What felt like a hobby slowly morphed into something far more sinister. As Shilton himself admitted, "But once you're addicted, that's it. And I was addicted." Act 2. The Shadow of Addiction. What started as occasional flutter became a 45-year obsession that nearly cost him everything. The more his football career soared, the more his betting escalated. "The more you earn, the more you bet," he explained, illustrating a dangerous correlation between professional success and personal downfall. His primary focus was horse racing, but he'd also engage in football accumulators, which he later described as throwing money away. The pattern was classic addiction. A loss today was merely a temporary setback, with tomorrow always promising redemption. This cycle of chasing losses propelled the addiction forward, year after year. The financial consequences were catastrophic. Shilton confessed he genuinely doesn't know the exact sum lost, but stated unequivocally, it must run into millions. His wife Steph later estimated the losses at north of £1 million. He recalled losing approximately £20,000 in a single day and placing bets as large as £3,000 on a single horse. Beyond money, the addiction exacted a severe mental and physical toll. Shilton admitted to being almost ruined mentally, physically, and financially by this illness. He described himself as being lost and crippled by an addiction. The sustained pressure of hiding the addiction, coupled with the emotional roller coaster of wins and losses, created immense internal stress. The irony was staggering. A goalkeeper's profession demands extraordinary control, precision, mental fortitude, and performing under pressure, qualities Shilton was renowned for on the field. Yet, in his personal life, he was captive to an addiction defined by complete loss of control and compulsive behaviour. His marriage to Steph was severely strained. She vividly described the gambling company Betfair as the other woman in their relationship. She felt she was in big competition with Betfair and was resolute. "There is no way I'm losing him to the bookie." Steph's discovery was gradual and painful. She initially sensed a sadness in his eyes and noticed unsettling behaviour. Her suspicions led her to borrow his phone, where she found frequent calls to gambling companies. The reality became starker when she would wake in the night, look downstairs, and see he was gambling on races in Australia on his laptop. Act 3. Public collapse. In February 2013, Shilton's private struggles burst into public view in the most humiliating way. At age 63, he was arrested for drink driving in Colchester, Essex, after an anonymous tip-off about an intoxicated driver. police found him with more than double the legal alcohol limit whilst driving his Jaguar XF. The court proceedings revealed deeper issues. His legal representative informed magistrates that Shilton would find it difficult to pay any fine because his finances were complicated. The reasons cited were that he was going through a divorce and selling his house. This admission provided a rare public snapshot of his financial strain. The fine itself was modest, £1,020 including costs, but represented something far more significant for a former international sports star. He received a 20-month driving ban, and as he left court made a brief statement. "I've nothing to say, really, just that I had a very fair hearing." This incident didn't occur in isolation. It unfolded while Shilton was grappling with his long-standing gambling addiction and navigating the personal upheaval of divorce. While these crises don't excuse drink driving, they paint a picture of a life under considerable strain. Act 4. Career criticism and decline. Even his legendary football career wasn't immune to scrutiny, particularly during its latter stages. At the 1990 World Cup in Italy, aged 40, criticism surfaced regarding his physical capabilities. It was observed that Shilton had lost some of the agility and speed which carried him to 125 caps. Critics specifically noted his declining agility and pace, particularly during penalty shootouts. This became most pronounced during England's heartbreaking semi-final defeat to West Germany, decided by penalties. Shilton's immobility was most marked in this crucial shootout, and his penalty-saving record fell under scrutiny. For a goalkeeper who'd built a career on reliability, the inability to save any penalties in such a high-stakes moment drew considerable comment. The critiques highlighted an uncomfortable truth about athletes extending their careers into their 40s. Goalkeeping still demands explosive movements, quick reflexes, and flexibility, attributes that naturally diminish with age. More speculatively, the immense off-field turmoil Shilton was experiencing raises questions about its impact on performance. He adamantly stated his gambling addiction never impacted upon his football, describing it as another world, a release. However, the sustained mental strain of concealing addiction, coupled with financial worries over many years, represents a considerable psychological burden that could have subtly affected focus and resilience. Act 5. Redemption. But at a cost. The turning point arrived in 2015 after what Shilton described as yet another costly weekend. He found himself calling an agent to request an advance on a future appearance. Steph was present during this call, and something shifted within him. Something in me, which had been building up, said, "What are you doing at your age? You've had 40 years to win. You're an addict. I've finished with it." His love for Steph and fear of losing her were powerful catalysts. "I knew I loved Steph. I didn't want to lose her." For Steph, this declaration was one of the greatest moments of my life, though she acknowledged the journey ahead required remapping his whole life. Recovery wasn't instant, but a process involving determined effort, supported by Steph's love and support. She's credited with having literally saved Peter from his 45-year gambling addiction. This involved managing withdrawal symptoms and completely restructuring his daily life. Emerging from addiction's darkness, Shilton found new purpose, campaigning against gambling industry harms. He and Steph became vocal advocates, working to raise awareness of gambling addiction's devastating consequences. Shilton has been described as a tireless campaigner against aspects of the betting industry's relationship with football. His commitment saw him march to Downing Street with a petition bearing 12,000 names, calling for stricter regulations. They collaborate with the Big Step campaign to end gambling advertising in football and gambling with lives, supporting families bereaved by gambling-related suicides. Steph also became significant in this advocacy work. Drawing on her experiences, she qualified as a therapist in 2020, becoming actively involved with organisations supporting the affected others, loved ones of gambling addicts who often suffer immense stress. A central element of their advocacy is their co-authored book, Saved: Overcoming a 45-Year Gambling Addiction, published in 2021. Described as a brutally honest journey into an addict's life, the book serves as both personal testament and beacon of hope for others struggling with addiction. Resolution: Peter Shilton's transformation from secretly battling ruinous addiction to public advocate represents remarkable resilience. At 75, he's confronted his demons and found new purpose in protecting others from gambling's harms. His advocacy carries profound authenticity, born from decades of lived experience of being almost ruined mentally, physically, and financially by gambling. Yet his story remains tinged with sadness. Despite his recovery and redemption, the scars of what he lost, millions of pounds, years of stress, damaged relationships, can never be fully erased. His legacy is now far more complex than that of a record-breaking goalkeeper alone. He's become a figure embodying human fallibility and the potential for redemption, but also the devastating cost of addiction. The narrative encompasses incredible professional highs, devastating personal lows, and a determined path towards recovery. It speaks to universal themes of vulnerability and the arduous fight to overcome adversity. At 75, while Shilton has found peace and purpose, he remains a man carrying the weight of decades lost to addiction. A reminder that even the most celebrated figures face their own battles, and that recovery, whilst possible, cannot reverse time's passage. Wasted career. Norman Hunter ended Frank Casper's career with a single kick. But was he really a thug, or the most misunderstood genius in English football history? The year was 1974. Burnley were beating Leeds United 4-1 at Elland Road. Frank Casper had just crossed the ball and was running off the pitch when Norman Hunter followed him and delivered a crushing tackle behind his bad knee. The look on Hunter's face afterwards? Pure satisfaction. Casper never properly played again. This is the story everyone knows about Norman Hunter, the hard man, the enforcer, the player who earned the nickname Bites Your Legs from his own fans. But there's another side to this tale that will shock you, because this same Norman Hunter became the very first winner of the PFA Players Player of the Year award. His fellow professionals voted him the best player in England. Not the hardest, not the most feared, the best. How can both stories be true? The nickname Bites Your Legs came from Leeds fans themselves. Some say it was at the 1968 League Cup final against Arsenal. Others point to the 1972 FA Cup final, also against Arsenal. Either way, supporters unfurled a banner reading "Norman Bites Your Legs," and the cameras loved it. Hunter himself had mixed feelings about the banner. He said it didn't make him more aggressive, and he certainly never tried to live up to it. But he knew it could prejudice referees and opponents against him. The nickname was born from fan admiration, but it might have made his job harder. The tag perfectly captured how Hunter played. He was a tough tackling centre-half who was relentless in every challenge. Opponents knew they were in for a long afternoon. One rival said Hunter kicked you from the first whistle to the last. He was the rock that attacks crashed against. But Hunter was playing in Don Revie's Leeds United. This was the team that earned the label Dirty Leeds during their most successful period in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Revie built his side around tough characters like Billy Bremner, Jack Charlton, and Norman Hunter. They were known for their combative style. The team's approach was described as arch pragmatism with a touch of footballing idealism. But it was the pragmatic, physical side that dominated headlines. Leeds won trophies, but they also earned a reputation for aggression that stuck for decades. One incident helped cement this image. The Battle of Goodison Park in 1964 saw extreme violence between Leeds and Everton. An Everton player was sent off in the 4th minute for punching John Giles. Players clashed repeatedly. The game was even threatened with abandonment. Despite Everton starting the trouble, the press blamed Leeds. This became a cornerstone of the Dirty Leeds legend. It showed how media narratives can shape a team's reputation, sometimes ignoring the actual facts. Within this setup, Norman Hunter was seen as the main enforcer. His aggressive tackling was integral to the team's success and intimidating aura. He was ranked as the hardest player in Leeds United's history. The team fought and scrapped with gusto, and Hunter was at the heart of it all. Interestingly, many Leeds fans came to wear the Dirty Leeds title with pride. It became a symbol of Yorkshire spirit that stood against more compliant parts of English football. A negative label became a badge of honour. But Leeds weren't just about aggression. They were also capable of brilliant football and consistently reached major European finals. Key players from this era won individual awards. One analysis noted that no other club could match their proportion of individual honours in the 1960s. This brings us to Norman Hunter's greatest achievement. In 1974, he became the inaugural winner of the PFA Players Player of the Year award. This was huge, particularly for a defender with his reputation. The award meant everything to Hunter because his fellow professionals voted for him. These were the very players who faced him week in, week out. For them to select Hunter, a player with his hard-man image, spoke volumes about their respect for his footballing ability. Don Revie had confidently predicted Hunter would win. Hunter himself treasured this recognition above all others. He said it gave him enormous pleasure and satisfaction. You don't get that award if you can't play. It's the top award for any footballer. This served as a powerful counter-narrative to the simple bites-your-legs image. His peers acknowledged that his game was far more than aggressive tackling. It included skill, anticipation, and a deep understanding of defending. But Hunter's career wasn't without controversy. The Frank Casper incident remains the most damaging. In March 1974, during that match between Burnley and Leeds, Casper had gone past Hunter and crossed the ball. He was actually off the pitch when Hunter came in with the tackle. Casper remembered it clearly. Hunter followed him off the field and gave him a big kick behind his bad knee. An eyewitness described the look of hatred on Hunter's face, followed by a job well done smirk as he jogged away. The tackle effectively ended Casper's career, despite a brief comeback attempt 16 months later. He and Hunter never spoke again, even when seated next to each other at a dinner years later. Another infamous incident involved Francis Lee during a match at Derby County in November 1975. Lee had a reputation for winning penalties, and Hunter reportedly accused him of diving during the game. Earlier, a penalty had been awarded to Derby after Hunter fouled Lee. In the second half, tensions exploded. An off-the-ball incident saw both players exchanging punches. As they walked towards the tunnel, the fight reignited. Lee reportedly floored Hunter in what was described as a second flurry of punches. The entire fight was captured and broadcast on Match of the Day, making it nationally notorious. Lee received a 4-week ban. In 2003, The Observer called it sport's most spectacular dismissal. Lee later joked that it was good he didn't reach the dressing room, or he might still be coming out on parole. These incidents show the aggressive edge that defined Hunter's play. The broadcasting of the Lee fight significantly amplified its infamy, showing the growing power of television in shaping public perception. Yet, away from football, Hunter was a completely different person. This is perhaps the most fascinating aspect of his story. On the pitch, he was the fearsome bites-your-legs. Off it, he was consistently described as gentle, warm, and friendly. Casey Stoney, who met him at a PFA dinner, called him one of the nicest, warmest, and friendliest men she'd ever met. BBC reporter Ian Dennis, who worked with Hunter, described him as a gentle giant, the complete opposite off the pitch to how he was on it. At Bristol City, where Hunter played later in his career, teammates painted the same picture. Alan Dix called him top class as a man and a much better footballer than people gave him credit for. Terry Cooper described him as a simple family man with no edge off the field. This ability to switch between on-field aggression and off-field gentleness was remarkable. Hunter seems to have been exceptionally skilled at adopting the necessary aggressive mindset for professional football, then reverting to his natural, amiable self away from the pitch. The hardman image could be seen as a professional shell, a necessary tool to intimidate opponents in an era where such qualities were vital for defenders. This was perhaps a performed role rather than his authentic personality. Hunter's career was laden with success. He earned 28 caps for England, scoring twice. He was in the 1966 World Cup winning squad, though he didn't play. With Leeds, his honours included 2 First Division championships, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and 2 Inter-Cities Fairs Cups. Norman Hunter's death in April 2020 prompted an outpouring of tributes that showed his complex legacy. Eddie Gray called him a truly great player, as good as any defender who played the game. John Giles paid tribute to his great friend. Gary Lineker remarked that this awful virus was one crunching tackle too far, but Hunter would be biting legs somewhere. Peter Shilton remembered him as someone who always had a laugh and was a hard worker. Crucially, Shilton said Hunter had much more than just being tough. The tributes acknowledged his formidable toughness, but coupled this with respect for his footballing ability and genuine affection for his personality. They embraced all facets of his career rather than sanitizing his story. Hunter's legacy isn't simple. It's a complex mixture of immense success, peer recognition, and unwavering loyalty to Leeds. But it also includes controversial incidents and his central role in the dirty Leeds era. The warmth in the tributes, particularly from opponents, shows that his off-field character fostered profound respect that transcended on-field battles. There were stories of players sharing drinks after kicking 10 bells out of each other. Norman Hunter's story is fascinating because it challenges easy categories. He was synonymous with ferocity, yet won the highest peer recognition for skill. He was part of the maligned dirty Leeds, yet was universally loved as a person. Hunter will be remembered as one of English football's most iconic defenders. For Leeds, he remains an undisputed legend from their most glorious era. His career offers insights into reputation, the abilities required for top-level success, and the complex makeup of sporting heroes. Maybe Norman Hunter didn't really bite your legs. Maybe he just played like he had no fear. Brian Robson's story isn't what most people expect. Known as Captain Marvel at Manchester United, this football legend faced crushing injuries and unexpected challenges that would break most players. But Robson's journey shows us something powerful about never giving up. From becoming a Premier League icon to struggling in management, Brian Robson's path has been filled with incredible highs and devastating lows. Today, we dive into the complex story of Captain Marvel and discover how he turned setbacks into something meaningful. Act 1. The Rise of Captain Marvel. Brian Robson started his professional career at West Bromwich Albion in 1972. He wasn't born into football royalty. He earned every opportunity through pure determination and skill. At Albion, he quickly made his mark, playing over 200 games and becoming club captain while still young. His breakthrough moment came during the 1978-79 season. Robson helped West Bromwich Albion achieve an incredible third-place finish in Division 1. They even reached the UEFA Cup quarter-finals. This performance caught the attention of bigger clubs across England. In 1981, Manchester United paid a record-breaking £1.5 million for Robson's services. This transfer changed his life forever. At Old Trafford, he didn't just play football, he became the heart and soul of the team. Robson served as Manchester United's captain longer than anyone else in the club's history. What made Robson special was his playing style. He was the perfect box-to-box midfielder. He could score goals, make tackles, and lead his teammates all in the same game. His combination of technical skill and raw physical power was rare. He possessed incredible stamina and fierce competitiveness that inspired everyone around him. Sir Alex Ferguson praised Robson's abilities, noting his excellent ball control and decisive tackling. Ferguson said Robson had a unique ability to read the game and make sudden, deadly runs from midfield into the opponent's penalty area. This skill made him incredibly dangerous and unpredictable. Robson's tough tackling style perfectly matched the physical era of the 1970s and 1980s football. Strong challenges were more accepted back then. His intensity occasionally led to fouls, but he was never known for malicious play. Everything he did came from an unshakable desire to win. Gary Neville, who later became Manchester United captain, perfectly described Robson's spirit. Neville said Robson epitomised everything a United player should be. He gave blood, sweat and tears in every game. When Robson burst into the penalty box, it looked like his life depended on it. Act 2. The injury battle. Despite his incredible talent, Robson's career was constantly threatened by serious injuries. These weren't minor setbacks. They were career-threatening problems that would have ended most players' dreams. At West Bromwich Albion, Robson suffered 3 broken legs within a single year. Doctors worried these injuries could end his career before it truly began. He also recovered from a fractured ankle in 1976-77. The fact that he came back from these setbacks showed his incredible mental strength. A persistent shoulder injury became his biggest challenge. He first dislocated it in February 1986, just months before the World Cup. Despite his determination to lead England in the tournament, further damage forced him off the field during the opening games against Portugal and Morocco. His World Cup ended prematurely. Similar injury problems affected his participation in the 1990 World Cup. These constant physical battles meant Robson was always fighting to stay fit. Sir Alex Ferguson famously highlighted Robson's courage, noting how he played until age 37, despite 3 broken legs, a broken collarbone, and countless hamstring and ankle injuries. Robson earned 90 caps for England, many as captain. Experts believe he would have easily reached 100 caps if injuries hadn't limited his availability. The physical toll of his aggressive playing style was enormous, but it also made him a legend. While his combative approach made him great, it also created long-term consequences. His strength, bravery, and dedication to winning the ball put him at higher risk of injury. This wasn't bad luck. It was the natural result of his uncompromising style. Act 3. Management challenges. After retiring as a player, Robson moved into management with high expectations. He became player manager at Middlesbrough in 1994. His start was remarkable. He immediately guided the club to win the Division 1 title, securing promotion to the Premier League. During this successful campaign, Robson still made 22 playing appearances himself. His legendary status helped attract expensive signings like Nick Barmby, Brazilian star Juninho, and Italian striker Fabrizio Ravanelli. Players wanted to work with the famous Captain Marvel. Over 7 years at Middlesbrough, Robson led the team to 3 Wembley Cup finals. Unfortunately, they lost all 3. The team also suffered relegation in 1996-97, though this was partly due to a controversial 3-point deduction for cancelling a fixture due to illness and injury. Robson's retirement from playing in 1997 marked a turning point. Without his on-field presence, Middlesbrough's league finishes didn't consistently improve. They finished 9th, 12th and 14th before his departure in 2001. This pattern suggested that his playing ability had been a crucial factor in early success. His later managerial career proved more challenging. At Bradford City, he managed only 6 wins in 27 games, and the team was relegated. His contract wasn't renewed after barely 6 months. At West Bromwich Albion, Robson achieved the famous Great Escape, in 2004-05, becoming the first team in 14 years to avoid relegation after being bottom at Christmas. However, despite significant investment in new players the following season, the team was relegated again. His time at Sheffield United lasted less than a year. Despite managing an expensively assembled squad, they failed to challenge for promotion. Robson expressed frustration about lacking expected funds for team rebuilding. His final managerial role was with the Thailand national team from 2009 to 2011. While he secured some friendly wins, he couldn't guide Thailand past the group stage of major tournaments. Act 4. Understanding the transition. The phrase, "great players don't always make great managers," perfectly describes Robson's experience. Leading on the pitch requires different skills than managing from the dugout. As a player, Robson excelled through instinct, personal brilliance, and leading by physical example. Management requires strategic planning, tactical innovation, complex man management, squad building, and navigating club politics and financial constraints. The expectations placed on legendary players entering management can be overwhelming. Clubs often hope their famous names will magically transform results. When immediate success doesn't follow, disappointment sets in quickly. Act 5. Legacy beyond football. After his managerial career ended, Robson found his perfect role as Manchester United's global ambassador in 2011. This position allows him to leverage his iconic status and deep connection with the club without the intense pressures of direct management. In this role, Robson participates in public events and offers insights on current football matters. This commitment reveals Robson's mature understanding of professional sports challenges. His work emphasizes supporting players not just as athletes, but as individuals with personal lives and responsibilities. Robson's approach during his managerial career also reflected this philosophy. He tried to create family-like atmospheres within his teams, valuing players as complete human beings rather than just football assets. Conclusion: the real victory. Brian Robson's story teaches us that greatness isn't measured only by trophies or statistics. His career shows extraordinary resilience in facing adversity. The injuries that could have ended his dreams became part of his legend. While his managerial career didn't match his playing achievements, Robson's impact extends far beyond football results. His commitment to player welfare and his role as a Manchester United ambassador demonstrate leadership that transcends sport. Robson's journey from Captain Marvel to global ambassador illustrates how legendary figures can continue contributing meaningfully even when their primary careers change direction. His dedication to helping current and former players navigate challenges shows the true measure of his character. The downfall in management became an opportunity for different kinds of success. Brian Robson's legacy isn't diminished by managerial struggles. Instead, it's enhanced by his continued positive influence on football and the lives of those who play it. His story reminds us that true champions find ways to keep fighting, keep contributing, and keep making a difference, regardless of the challenges they face.